So this is my 2020 to 2021 sketchbook. I like the graininess of the paper, but also the shading can kind of look flat, and I have to really push the pencil to give me that volume and dimension I'm looking for whatever piece. But also it's cool if you're going for, an Art Nouveau flat look. That's a great, quick way to do it because the blends are smoother. And also the graininess and the tooth of the paper kind of eats up a lot of graphite. So you really have to layer graphite on graphite to start getting these darker shades, where when you have a waxier paper like moleskin, or even the most waxy that I've ever used is Yupo, which is almost like plastic. That one, you get lines in blends like with every single line. This, I want to say, is Yupo. This is very waxy. It's almost like a different shade of even the paper color. What I see just kind of eggshelly and very waxy. So this feels like it has a layer of gloss to it. And if you compare it to a drawing that's in the sketchbook, you can tell how much darker the lines are. And I'm not pushing the lines or using a darker pencil. I'm literally just using the same pencil but different paper type. So sometimes if you're not getting the results that you want, just check your paper. It could be as simple as that. With this sketchbook, I think I was trying wet media and alcohol markers. I can tell this is it's either whiteout or alcohol marker, and I was just not getting the results I wanted. I wanted really nice smooth blends, and they were getting these kind of blotchy results, which I'm a fan now, not at the time. Kind of like a blotchy look now. I think when you don't intend to do that, it's where okay, this was not my intention, so I know this was not what I wanted. You want your intentions to translate into your piece. Sometimes it's good to experiment and see what it goes. But if you rely too much on that, I think it's where a lot of people fall into the problem of having a lot of hits and misses. Like some pieces are great and some pieces are not so great, and you don't really know why one works and the other one doesn't. This, I can tell, is mostly personal pieces and just illustrative pieces. I was having fun with this kind of like a zombie lady, almost like a clown, like a creepy circus. Oh, there's another zombie skater. There was a theme here. I don't remember what it was. Oh, there you go. Another piece that was definitely abandoned. I think it was in the zombie theme, and I was not feeling the direction. So I have quite a few of these in here where I just moved on. Oh, another one. I'm trying to remember why I didn't finish these. Feeling too dark, and I just was like, I'm not in that headspace anymore. There's an element in my work in general that has that, which weirdly enough, I'm a very happy person, but I just like the aesthetic. But I think that's why I abandoned this drawing, just because it was getting a little too gloomy for my taste.
This lesson is from Eliza's style course. It's a bootcamp on developing your own style. In this course, you'll improve your line confidence, learn how to simplify something complex into a more personal, stylized illustration, and build a process to execute large, awesome pieces. Check it out at proko.com/Eliza.
A lot of these are a one piece a day situation. Some series I do, but I almost do it as eating your greens. I just want to have something that I do a day, even if it's this, or if it's a series, like a mini series, or even if it's a bunch of poses on one page. To me, this is building habit. So at least one a day is good. And if I start repeating a lot of the same work, I would catch it here because it'll be flipping, 10 female figures. I'm like, all right, let me do a male or a hand or something completely different. I used to beat myself up a lot when I was doing work and be like, stop trying to be too conceptual, stop trying to be too literal. And I learned to ignore that little annoying part of your brain that keeps bullying you because it's not fair. And then it stops me in my tracks and stops me from actually creating, and then it becomes worse. So the best way to look at it is okay, if you do a concept and it's not as successful, do it again. Here again, I was trying to do some ink. This paper, it was just not having it. It added to the craziness of the skull. I was definitely fighting the paper here a lot of times and just keep trying to get something colorful that works. Eventually going with color pencils, I think those went well. The saturation was great, so I was like, all right, there's something here that I like about the contrast. Contrast is good. The blending is decent, but it's difficult to blend color pencils with a blending stick. So what I use either a transparent pencil or a white or eggshell to basically blend all the colors into each other. So that'll be the equivalent of a blending stick, but with color pencil. More pencil, all conceptual stuff here. So just pushing, kind of having like some figure and then trying to be very designy with all the elements on top. And all the filigrees, they're actual plants, but also filigrees, meaning more like conceptualized and stylized leaves. I was trying pen. We don't have to ignore it, but I don't like it. I think I would rather do this with color pencil or red lead. Here I was more successful, I think, with the blending. But again, this is something I would have to develop for a while and just stick with it until I feel comfortable. So I think between here and here, definitely my cross-hatching with just pen improved. And you can tell how I think about drawing. So first I would do a very rough silhouette outline, adding the details, and then adding some volume with just shading. Very minimal shading here. This is from the Academy of Sciences in San Francisco. They had permanent exhibits there, so good practice. But for speed, pen wasn't very efficient, so I think that's why I abandoned it. And then going back to pencil, here definitely I was playing around with new stuff and just trying to see what works, what doesn't. I was struggling with quite a few of the medias, which is, again, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with trying new stuff, even if it's not successful. There's no art police that's gonna say, don't use this because you're not good at it. It's like, no, it's fine. And then I think going back to pencil was like my palette cleanser to be like, okay, I know I got this still. Oh, it's my son. He was 2. You can tell too here, and definitely you can see how different the shading is. It's a lot more flat, and I lean into that. So I lean into the shadow and the pants and some of the hands, kind of outline the shapes and keep them pretty light. This is like a lot more flat than this one, for example. And this was intentional here. I think I was finally figuring out the strength of this paper. Here even more, I was like just flattening the shapes and the volumes. So a lot of shading in the face is like stylized. It's just like one layer. This is the most basic light and shadow and nothing beyond that, which you would see in a lot of like Art Nouveau. Even more here, even though the lighting here is different, it's like from both sides. So the heaviest would be in the middle, like the heaviest and darkest elements, but very flat still. Here I'm starting to go back between kind of a smoother shading with pushing some of the light and shadows even further than the previous I just showed you. Some inks. I was stubborn with this sketchbook, like you're gonna take some wetter media, whether you like it or not, paper. This is a series here that I was pushing. So here, this is definitely micron and alcohol markers. I didn't use ink the way I would use it normally, which will be the dip pen and ink. I prefer that way. This is because you have such good line quality, but I actually really like the sketchiness of this. So I was like, oh, this is cool. This is different than the usual ink that I've been in. More of this here feels more like etching. And then the alcohol marker give like a really smooth transition, a kind of have a smooth mid-tone. And I really enjoyed that. Oh, this was for Lightbox. They asked me to do the t-shirt design that year. So I did the cyborg, putting the Lightbox logo in their head. And then this one, full-blown page of artichokes. And the girl sitting in the artichokes. My cabbages! I was determined to get really dark values and hues. And this took a while. I want to say this is a few days of this work. Just try and get in there. I think I was over the fact that all my blending was kind of light. So I wanted to get the saturation that I wanted. But this would have been like half the time if I used like Yupo paper or even moleskin. Some more ink, white out on top to be the moon, which is also a face. This is all like conceptual stuff. This is another combination of hands and leaves. I like this piece. I remember doing it and then I wanted to do like big versions of this one. For some reason, this stuck with me and I was really happy with how the flow was going and then how the pieces of kind of this like stiff fabric are complementing the face, almost like framing it. So I ended up doing these really, really big pieces for a gallery show that I had. And those were, gosh, I want to say like 30 something inches tall. It was fun based on just this one drawing because I'm not copying a piece and just blowing it up. Usually, if I wanted to do something bigger like this one, I'd have this as a reference because a lot of times when I draw bigger, since your pencil is still small, the lines get very fine. And I do like the big, bold lines here. So either I have to switch pencils, but As you know, I'm stubborn and I like my own tool set. So I usually stick to my usual pencil and then I end up just repeating the lines many times so they get like nice and thick to compensate for the size. Because I've done pieces where I'm like, something looks off, and I realized that on a small scale, the materials, the pencils make just larger lines. That's usually the way I go about kind of going bigger. And this one I really like because it's very caricatured life drawing without being like too cartoony. I think you can see like there's a lot of stylization without it losing being grounded in reality. But the shapes are super stylized. They're very flat. And in this course, I'm going to do some of this because we're going to talk about how much information you could put or not put and still have a piece that's like very powerful and evocative. A frog. Just a friendly frog to cleanse the palette. I think I like that one with the artichokes. I wanted to do something more saturated. This is just trying different surfaces, having like water and water reflection, still being very stylized, and then having a figure that's emerging. So anything that's closer to us, like kind of seemed like popping out of the page. That's why the background's a little more dim and flat. I do like keeping old pieces and different unfinished ones because I had an art teacher in college, Mike Mitchell, who was incredible and one of my all-time favorite professors. He taught life drawing at CalArts, and he said don't ever throw art away because that's just archiving your own progress and also honoring your path. Because if you start throwing away work, you put a lot of effort regardless if it's good or not. So it's almost paying respect to your journey as an artist. So I was like, okay, because I was definitely, there's so much work that I look back and I'm like, oh my God, what was I thinking? But now that I'm so detached from it, there's sentimental value to that and just the searching. Even here, I'm like, okay, this is a cool experiment, trying stuff and seeing where it takes me more. This is definitely like Art Nouveau-y. This is the theme of this sketchbook, is kind of flattening out a figure, lots of design, lots of foliage. And by design, I mean just like kind of coming up with a general shape and then filling everything inside the shape. Even in the unfinished pieces, what I find interesting is where I start from, because a lot of times it could be the ear or the hand. Like whatever grabs my attention of a pose, either in a photo or real life, that's what I go from. That's my anchor. So I would start with something that's visually interesting to me and then build the art around it. It doesn't have to be the same thing every time. I knew I drew this one because there were too many girls in the sketchbook. So I was like, okay, gotta do something very different, a different body type. Here I was going super, super stylized with shading shapes. The colors are crazy. I don't think I will ever use this color scheme. Like it's kind of yellow, orange, and blue, but it was fun when I did. I think it was inspired because the reference had this blue hint to it. So I just pushed it and it just feels a little like old school. Here, I think what I like about this one is it was more contemporary colors. Kind of having the muted, but also pops of color where you want to feel like flesh. So, pops of reds and blues and greens just to show that like the skin is translucent, it's not plasticky. Where here it definitely is more of that. She feels definitely like more plasticky, which I think it works for this piece. This was from Life, I believe, or video reference. I did some life drawing in here, pushing those flat shapes and kind of that like jaggedy look of the stump. So it's not as smooth, but that's okay. I think it adds to kind of the liveliness of a piece. And then vice versa, something super clean. And I like how like the things are combining into each other. Like the jawline here and the value of the shoulder and the arm, they're all the same. So I just kept them as one piece. Things are pushing and pulling depending on obviously the reference, but also where I want the eye to go. And I really want this line here between the face, the hand, and the torso to be the focal point, so everything else can go in and out of focus. Here, it's subtle, but the directionality of the shading, it conveys the idea that the body is at an angle. So we're looking a little bit like downwards. Even though the face is perfect profile, the body isn't. There's an angle to it, so just using that direction of shading can ever so slightly convey that idea. Back to red. So I guess I was done with shading for a minute. Wanted to do a little more cross hatching here. I was definitely struggling with just how dark I wanted the face to look. But again, we're paying respect to old art. We're not judging it. Then here, I think between going from something kind of more realistic to something darker. Remember, I really like the ear, like the nose, and how I was able to like really carve out these darkest areas. This is where I pushed that idea of like the light and then the dark outline. It's stylized, but still very much shows kind of that like heavy lighting that's coming from this way. And it's like the subtle things, is having like this line here being really dark. It's subtle, but I think it makes a difference. Having the core shadow being very visible and very much pronounced, like on the nose, the corners of the mouth, and under here and even here, very subtly. But even the smallest difference, if you know what you're doing, it helps kind of separate things from being too flat and pulling stuff out of the flatness. Here, I don't know what I was doing. I remember don't liking this, so I was like, you can tell I was covering things heavily. And there's elements I like. I like the eye here. I think it's probably my favorite part. This might be the only time I actually erased just like the directional things that I did, just to add something that's interesting. Here, I was trying to do these kind of blob heads, kind of interacting with each other, showing some compassion without actually having faces. And I like the hand. I don't know why I stopped. I should have finished it, but then I really wanted to do kind of a very powerful embrace. So I think just the idea itself, that like kind of close embrace and compression of skin from the fingers showed like that. Like they're definitely liking each other. I did use references for the poses. I just really like the hand. So sometimes I would use a general shape, and I mean, I know anatomy enough where I can make up the anatomy even if it's not in the reference. So Inktober, I was doing just, I don't remember if these are prompted or not. I like the hands and the weird crow in the mirror. Or is it a mirror? Is it part of her? We'll never know. I think I should have just kept this whole style, this entire sketchbook, which is a very flat look. It's just, this paper likes the flat look. This was fun. Very artsy and stylized. Lots of details. And I wanted to really get in there and get those details in. Sometimes it's literally that. It's almost therapeutic. I started a piece for Inktober that was, she was a giant and birds were tiny, but then I did this instead, which was almost like she's, I guess she is big since the birds are so close to her. She's almost like a messenger or some kind of a watcher over the foliage. I like this. I think this was successful. Kind of having flat pieces, but then having so many shapes on top of each other that it's feeling like flesh and face, and especially the details around the mouth I do enjoy. That's kind of the hard part, is like, it's so subjective, it's so open-ended that you have to just be very careful at either not getting carried away or not stopping yourself in your own tracks, because there's just so many options. It's a fine balance, and to me the Lackmus test is it fun? If it's not, why? Is it the themes? Is it the media? What is it? I think burnout is a common theme or at the moment. Like, people are feeling burnt out. I do too, honestly. Like, every once in a while I'm like, okay, I feel like I need something new. But I do know that the feeling of not drawing for a while is worse than having the art block. So even doing this is kind of keeping me in shape artistically before I get my next big moment of having a muse, I guess, whatever you want to call it. Some life drawing on one page. So I did really like the hand. So I just did many versions of like a turn on one page. And I think finally I did something with some wet media that I was okay with. And this is color pencil on top. So to me this worked. The contrast is good. I was not struggling. I was not fighting the paper. I don't remember what the dark part is. Could be even a Sharpie. Then here I did ink with brush. That's how I did the hair on top of the red. I was like, all right, cool contrast. I think between these two and how contrasty they are, you like that. Try a bunch of stuff, not be afraid to fail, move on if something is not working. Until literally the last few pages, I was like, all right, if I were to redo this whole entire sketchbook, I would do it in the flat, kind of a flat look, or I'll go very high contrast with the inks. So contrast here was big, and I think that stemmed from this paper that felt different than my normal paper. But as you can tell, even if it's difficult, I finished the sketchbook, and it's a big sketchbook. This took a while, and you stick to it, and you come up with different solutions and a lot of conceptual stuff. So here I think I was just just having fun with not really having a theme. It was more anything goes in here, success or not, whatever, it's just another page. The fact that I could tear it up even though I didn't. I think I've only gotten like a few pieces out of here, but everything else, I like that it's kind of a mix of quite a few themes or even looks. You know, obviously I have a super finished one, then, you know, something like this, it's like very loose, life drawing based or from life drawing, I don't remember. The biggest thing I took from this sketchbook was the flat look, which I've used quite a few times this year, even like in commercial work, where I'll have the focal point being super rendered and then the rest being flat, especially with something like this. This in particular I really liked, even if it's not the one piece that necessarily like stands out in the entire sketchbook. To me, was beneficial. It was fun, it was minimal effort, but also like maximum effect for what I wanted. Sometimes again, having a challenge pushes you and you end up doing something that you don't know. This is not what I normally do, so this was a fun way to develop a new way for me to shade, purely out of the fact that like this paper was so not responding to my inks and watercolors. I think in that year, if I'm not mistaken, I was making one of my books. Actually, it was my tutorial book, and the hard part about that was that I was also simultaneously working on this. So it's almost like I'm trying to do an instructional book and I'm failing at my own instructions here simply because of this page. So that's why I think I was like, I have to figure this out. I can't let the paper, you know, win in this case. There's got to be a way, clearly, obviously. And it wasn't the paper's fault. It was just me doing my old ways on something new and not quite getting the results that I was expecting. So this was a great time to also learn for myself that like, okay, I have to adapt. I have to adapt to whatever is coming my way, and that's okay. What I wanted to tackle with this course is to talk about style and how to dissect it and how to come up with your style. You develop a style just the way you would speak. It's your voice. It's like a visual voice. There's a method to developing your shorthand and your visual language. Explore, experiment. You try new techniques that either speed up your process or make things more fun and more interesting. If you're interested in the course and finding out more about it, you can find it at proko.com/Eliza.